We're here.
Yep, we're back in LA. So funny.
I feel like we are the opposite energies.
Mm-hmm.
Normally,
It's been a. I've been powering through.
you really have.
We're at the home stretch of highly unlikely. It's just been a combination of like everything's been taking longer than I thought it would. So getting everything done I still have like enough leeway for myself, but it's been like nonstop editing these episodes, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Also, just to preface, I'm Alex Gettlin. She's Rachel LaForce. We're married. I know she said that, but like we're married. This is a morning show. If this is your first episode, this is a weird way to start the show.
I don't know. I feel like this is us at our best. You know what I mean? Me, almost 8 months pregnant. Just
but I'm learning
just a Titanic.
I'm learning a lot about how to edit proper, like the creative process of editing a digital series, the technical side of it with Adobe Premiere. Even our engineer, Scotty Young, taught me some stuff. I learned how to do a cool rewind effect.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is of what I'm experiencing right now, because, you've had to take on a lot more because I haven't had the energy to, I literally the past 3 days have just been in bed. I've been so exhausted.
It did feel weird how, like, I put my hand on your belly and it was a little, it's amazing because it's our son, but there was a little bit of like, ooh, like it felt weird.
Yeah, you're like, ugh. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what's happening to me all day, every day. Because now he's big enough that like my whole belly is like, ba-boom, ba-boom.
Because it's like there really is like a little person in there. And so, which is great. I'm so excited. Thank God I'm going to have this done by the time he's born.
Yeah, just in time to start another one.
Yeah.
But
we'll do it a little differently next time.
But I think what I have learned, because I've had to start, I'm struggling right now with like mad case of FOMO because
fear of motherhood, obviously.
I don't know how you knew that. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. No, there is a little bit of that, but only because I haven't met him yet. Like I know as soon as I meet him, like I'll be like, oh my God, you're like the greatest thing ever. Like we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be thick as thieves.
I know you mean FOMO because shows are back now.
Everything is like slowly coming back. And I'm like,
Backstreet's back. All
okay,
right.
Bye. See you in a year when I come up for air.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the slow acceptance of what our lives, but my life specifically, is kind of transforming, and also giving myself the space to do that, of being like, stop with this narrative of like, I'm going to fall behind. It's like, who of what race? Like no one, you know what I mean? Like you'll be fine.
Well,
first of all, no one will miss you. Like second of all, like,
yeah, it's also now we're at the point of the COVID stuff, where if you're still not going out and living your life to some rational extent, it's either because you're actually like really seriously immune deficient, and in that case, I do sympathize with you, and we should do what we can to help those folks, or it's because, in my opinion, you have some kind of mental illness riddled with fear, like you're just not functional, or you've decided you like this new lifestyle better. Again, that's fine, but just understand it's for you, and we don't need you back in society. You can have everything delivered, but let us go back. Don't shame us for going back.
Spicy.
I just think it's dumb, dude.
Well, I will say, as an introvert, it's this new emergence is a lot for me. But I also understand, we have like, shout out to our good friend Sarah Albritton, who is also an associate producer in Highly Unlikely, very funny writer and comedian. Yep. And she has lived alone. I know she's been dating a little bit, like virtually or otherwise, but it's been really difficult for her.
Totally.
Because she's like such an extrovert. So, folks that I have in my life that are like that, I'm so grateful that we're seeing, kind of this slow yet rapid emergence. But yeah, then for people like me, I'm like, oh man.
Well,
I gotta like see a lot of people again. I will say, with all of the FOMO, what I'm really grateful for is that I will skip all of the conversations of like, hasn't this been wild? Oh, I'm so happy to be back. Like I will miss everyone's hot take on COVID because by the time I'm like back in all of these circles, to whatever extent that is, we will have like passed that time where everybody's got to get in their hot take.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that.
I mean, you know what's funny? I was at a show hanging out on, I want to say Wednesday night, maybe Thursday night, last week at some point, seeing some of our friends. And some comics were there, and they were just kind of like talking like, yeah, you know, it's like, and these are comics who have really hunkered down, like more than I think is necessary. And they haven't done any performing in a year. And they're like, they have like anxiety about it. Like, I got to learn how to do stand-up again. And I didn't say this to them, but in my head, I'm thinking like, dude, if you have to like learn how to do stand-up again, you probably weren't that good to begin with.
I mean,
I'm just speaking from my own experience. I had a full year between live shows, and it was like no time had passed. But I'm not even saying like I'm so amazing. It was just like to be fair, it was a pretty low stakes show.
Sure.
Fun crowd, like 45 people in this brewery. But I was just like up there, and like within 10 seconds of being on stage, it was just like, yeah, why would I wasn't nervous, but even being up there, and I was like, yeah, of course this is like,
yeah, I mean, your set, and you as a universal you might not be as tight, or like I understand like getting your sea legs back, but yeah, a lot of people that were like, I'm like, it should be like riding a bike. Like for me performing, I mean, I could be tired as shit, and somebody puts a mic in front of my face, I'm like, hey, how's everybody doing? Like, it's almost
sure,
it's automatic. Yeah. I mean, and I understand like, you were out of rhythm for sure. Mm-hmm. You were out of sync of like, I mean, when you've really been like honing it and working it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like working out,
sure.
right?
Absolutely.
But, I mean, but yeah, that's been interesting, and it's also going to be interesting because I feel like my perspective on comedy and what I want to talk about has already evolved like so much over the last year.
Yeah.
And then by the time I'm like really putting content out. Oh my God, everything is content now. By the time I'm like back up doing stand up in whatever capacity that is, I will have this whole introduction of like being a mom.
Totally.
So, So I'm like, I have no idea what kind of like comedian I'm going to be on the other side of this.
A tired one.
Probably funnier.
Way funnier.
Like
way funnier because also for both of us, because so much our lives are so much more interesting now. Specifically in the sense of like, I want to phrase this in the proper way so it doesn't sound like
sound like an asshole.
No, I don't care about that anymore. I really don't. I'm not being coy because and I've really come to this very, very strongly in the past few months. And it's like, listen, if I'm interacting with someone face to face, yes, I would absolutely hope I give off kindness and I'm patient and I'm courteous like any human would be. But I stand behind everything I say. And if I say something and someone's like, what you said was hurtful, I'll be like, okay, you're welcome to not listen. Or you're welcome to tell me that, but I just honestly don't care. I don't have the capacity to give a shit.
But I feel like your, for lack of a better word, like your like go fuck yourself mentality a little bit has really rubbed off on me. Like, there was I'm going to put a comic in quotes. There was a comic who commented on one of my social media posts, and I was triggered because again, like just an asshole white dude like telling me what the score is so incredibly frustrating and just triggering in general. And like normally I would be like, like old Rachel would have been able to ignore it. And now I'm like, I feel like you and I need to talk about this in the comments section.
It's that, and it's also I noticed kind of like from when's it like good time and all this really kicked up? I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I noticed there's a clear difference of how these things sort of pan out. Like a public figure, even like us being like quote unquote public figures, saying a thing that could be, oh no, it's a problem. And if it sinks them or if it ends up, nobody gives a shit. And this is what it always comes down to. If you say something that is attacking or disparaging a specific person or clearly directed as like a jab at a group of people, then it can sink you. But if you say a thing that's clearly just like a statement, and then people decide to be like, you're being ignorant, you're being hateful. If you just ignore it, they move on because there's so much every day. And you just don't draw attention to it. Do you remember when everybody's freaking out saying like Joe Rogan was telling people not to take the COVID vaccine?
Yeah.
And
But
then they just moved on because they realized that's not what he said. And also he like.
But it's not about that. It's also, to me, the what we're really seeing is that we have to make news, we have to make controversy out of everything.
Yeah.
We are no longer listening to what people say and going, I agree with that or I don't. It's anything that anyone says that could remotely get clicks or cause any sort of like disruption, which now we've seen is pretty much anything.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Dr. Seuss, Burger King, Joe Rogan. Like, you know, it's like.
Yeah, God, remember when everybody's freaking out about
I feel like the only thing that's still off limits is like Sasha and Malia Obama. Like, I feel like everybody else.
No, wasn't there a thing where like one of them smoked pot at a concert and people were freaking out?
Yeah, I think it, whichever one is older. Malia?
Who cares? Also, like, okay.
I know, but I'm just saying where it's like, yeah, like I don't listen to that noise anymore.
Sure.
Because it's it also feels exhausting because it's like, well, y'all aren't, why would I even invest any sort of opinion in it?
Right.
Because tomorrow somebody else is going to say something and everyone's going to go, wait, it's over here. Like, it just feels like this big like mob of people that are just, you know, going from person to person. And it sucks because.
You know what it reminds me of? Dogs at the dog park. They're just chasing each other aimlessly.
I know.
They'll start getting a little
They're at
scrap.
least cute.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? There's no direction. It's all just kind of aimless chaos.
Yeah, it really is. And that's why it's just like.
So I say all that to say, if I was having a person-to-person interaction and I slighted someone, I would honestly feel bad. I would listen. I would apologize profusely. But if I just said something on a podcast or in my comedy act or whatever, and some stranger I don't know, or an acquaintance I like barely know, is like, I have issue with that. I'd be like, okay, great. You're welcome to. I'm gonna go back to not caring, but thanks, I guess, for bringing it to my awareness. I mean, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with that information?
I don't know. You should ask them that. That's funny.
Sure.
Okay. What would you like me to do with that?
But we are contriving problems. I told you this thing last night.
But that's also interesting because I'm like, that everybody's like, well, like this is the beginning of the end. Like
No, it's
America's going down. And then I'm like, actually, to me, it's showing how, despite all of the very real issues that we are seeing highlighted, there are very real things that are happening that are issues. But ultimately, life is too easy.
Yep.
Things are too easy. We have too much access to food, to water.
Oh,
like,
speaking of food, so I showed you this last night. I saw, if I was better at making memes, I would have made this into a meme. I just don't know what the right words are to make it a joke. But I saw a picture of a McDonald's, and they're like marquee. They were advertising as a selling point that working there, you get paid $15 an hour and free. You get to eat free McDonald's. And I was just like, man, like that. If we have to, if one, the fact that they can't fill the position is interesting, not surprising, right? But then also that the idea that you would be like that eating free McDonald's would be worth working there. Well,
yeah, but you say that as somebody who, you know, we have so much food in our house that we have 2 fridges.
I know.
So do keep that in mind. But I hear the sentiment of what you're saying.
Well, the funny thing is, like, even if you make $15 and like, you know, now that the conversation is like, well, we're giving too much unemployment. We can't fill these jobs. And it's like, I have mixed feelings because the last thing I'm going to do is attack the poor for being poor. But when you think about it, yeah, working at McDonald's sucks. I'm sorry. You know, if you work there and you listen to this, I feel bad for you. Unless you like your job, in which case, good for you. That's great. But most people probably don't like those, you know, rough, on your feet all day, shitty service jobs. And then it's like, if you're getting $15 an hour roughly to be on unemployment, you wouldn't take that same amount of money to work at McDonald's. You probably wouldn't even take $20 an hour because really you're only benefiting $5 extra to give up your whole day. Does that make sense?
Sure. I just go back to being like, all of the voices that are like, well, see, nobody wants to work anymore because we gave them too much money on unemployment. And I'm like, okay, let me tell you what too much money is.
Yeah.
Okay. The most you can make on unemployment, at least in the state of California, is $435 a week, I think. $435 a week.
Now let's do some math here.
Okay. No, wait a minute.
Okay.
Hear me first, please. That is absolute. If people are willing to literally be at the poverty line,
yeah,
we need to talk about that. Sure, there's a percentage of people that, just let me finish before, I know you're ready to tell me your thing, but let me finish. Yeah. That like, if people are willing to sit at the poverty line rather than go and work for you in your shitty job where you're taking advantage of them, you're paying them like dog shit. It's like, why are we not talking about that? But we're shaming poor people. Yes, of course there's a percentage of people that are lazy and that are like, well, why would I go back to work if I can live off this unemployment? Of course.
Yeah.
There's outliers in every group, okay? But the fact that's where I just get frustrated, because also it's like the people that are having those conversations, like to me, like Tucker Carlson, your
BFF?
My BFF, but it's like, homie, you have no
Remember
space.
when we played Mary Fuck Kill and you went with him, Candace Owens, and Tommy Lauren, and you decided out of the three you'd end up marrying Tucker Carlson?
Because Tommy Lauren, I would say that I don't think that there's anybody that triggers me more. And that's my own business that I need to work on. But
I mean, she's a grifter, probably.
I can't even. Anyway, but it's just like those folks, like if you make over $75,000 a year and you live relatively comfortably in America, I don't feel like you get to comment unless you are helping or creating solutions to the problem. Like, I don't understand what these people think poor people are supposed to do.
So what I was just gonna, as an example, right? So if you earn $15 an hour and you work 40 hours a week, that's only $600 a week pre-taxes. So I'm just saying the difference isn't, so it doesn't, and 15 an hour is higher than a lot of.
The fact that we had to have a year-long discussion if we even wanted to make the like minimum wage is supposed to still be a livable wage.
Yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the idea of like a mandated minimum wage. See, the issue that always comes to all of these things is people conflate the quote unquote ethical questions with the practicality questions. It's not an ethical question of like what is a standard amount that you should be able to earn to live. It's a practicality thing. And it's like you can keep just inflating wages across the board, but I don't know. I mean, there is something to be said about like the marketplace supply and demand really should dictate the wages. Like,
great. Then if that's the case, nobody gets to shame poor people.
Yeah, I agree with that part.
But that's just what I'm saying, where it's like, great, if you want to come at me, not you, but the universal you, the powers that be, of being like, well, it's just not practical. Like, sorry, look at the economics, while they fucking like pull their Tesla into their, $2.5 million home. Great, sit on it. But also, it's like, then you guys, there doesn't get to be this huge conversation about the ignorance of poor people. Or if one more person says, oh, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, my eyes are literally going to bleed.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I guess
because then we're a la carting what part of this, huge infrastructure we want to pay attention to.
Sure.
And it's like shaming people because we have not provided them to be able to make any other choice is foul.
Well, the question is like, what does society owe its citizens, right? Like, does society owe you a job? I wouldn't say so.
But owing somebody a job is different than systematically oppressing groups of people.
Yeah, those are different things.
Right. But I'm just saying, it's like, no, do I think society owes you a job? No. But do I think if you're in the labor force that you should be able to make, especially if this whole make America great again and, like all these American dream and this 1950s idyllic bullshit thing that doesn't exist anymore, that, certain parties, more specifically on the right, like to tout and make us think that like there's, first of all, the promise that you're selling has never existed, number one, to the majority of Americans. And number two, I just think that I hear what you're saying, and I think that if we are providing jobs for people, or the other thing is like, I guess where my real anger comes in is like that everybody's playing the majority of Americans for a fool, but then going, I just feel like we're all being gaslit. Like Amazon, if you don't want to pay, like all of your workers a livable wage to where everybody, or like McDonald's, you don't want to pay a livable, like all these huge mega corporations. And then also like you get to like skeet out on taxes, it's like.
Well, see, that's the reason it's a mess is that, I mean, and listen, I know when I say, and the more I like learn and read about libertarian ideals, I'm like really, really becoming a fan of them. And I know when I talk about them, a lot of people like write me out. I've had people like laugh in my face, being like, "Oh, yeah, no taxes, no government regulation. Oh, what? So then like there's no more fire department or roads?" It's like you just assume that like it would. First of all, you take the most extreme side of what the platform is, and you just jump to the like, it's all chaos. It's like, I'm simply saying that our current system is not only not working, but making it worse. And that I would love to see us push hard in the other direction. And so what I was saying is like, that's where the problem comes in, where you have the combination of these mega tax breaks and not paying livable wages. To me, the answer is marketplace resolving itself, where there's no special interest group. You don't have special advantages to these corporations from the government. And so,
Well, and all the growth has happened so quickly that it's like there is no more, nothing is regulated. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like literally everything we're seeing and let's just call it capitalism as a whole, right? None of it is regulated. Social media isn't regulated. Like, the ties. That's why I know a lot of people that really take issue with the left. It's like, well, you guys own the media, you own social media, like all of these things. And it's like, I don't know. I guess I get frustrated at this point because I'm like, we all know there's issues, but everybody's yelling and then nobody's doing anything. And or when it comes to like holding our, like leaders to the standards that we should, we're still just throwing out clickbait.
Yeah, but because is that surprising? Think about it. Listen, I've said this 1,000 times, but for the 1,000th I have no love or sympathy for the Republicans. But I don't think the Democrats are any better, to be honest. I mean, I suppose there's a couple social issues that I lean more with them, but like it's nominal, right?
No, but it's frustrating because they use social issues to get folks on the left to vote in the same way that the Republicans get Christians to vote for them, and they don't actually give a shit about.
Right. But what I was getting at is that the left, for the most part, has a complete dominance over mainstream media, news and Hollywood and all of that, right? The university system and social media. So you effectively have like a mass control over, large in part, what the narrative is, what you want the majority of the country to think and believe.
What do we think people want? Here's a question. What do you think that the people in positions of power what is the narrative supposed to be? Because I am so confused.
What do you mean?
Like, what is the narrative supposed to be? If they're selling us a narrative, what is it? What am I supposed to be buying into?
That trust them, they have all the best answers, and just let the government handle it.
But who thinks that?
I'm saying that's what's being pushed on us constantly. Even with our current governorship race, right? The whole attack from the whole argument of people who are defending Gavin Newsom, saying don't allow. They're all trying to say anyone running against Gavin Newsom to become governor, or they're all Republicans, right? They're all Trump lovers, QAnon, whatever. It's because they hate freedom from the left or progressive ideals. And the whole narrative basically is just, Gavin's got a plan. He was about to fix homelessness.
He's got a plan.
But it's all bullshit.
No, I know. I am still
I like
shocked.
This guy, Major Williams. I got to do a little more research on him. But from what I can tell, I'm a vote for this dude, Major Williams.
I don't know. I had a little bit of an issue of, on all of or the flyer that you showed me,
Mhm.
and yeah, as a black man, and he had his defend the police shirt just like with a thumbs up.
But don't you feel in some way, you as a white woman, it's bizarre for you to even have an opinion what this black man should think?
I don't think it's bizarre, and I hear what you're saying. I would not. I'm just telling you what my initial reaction was
But
to
where
it.
do you think that comes from?
From all of the outrage and sadness that I have seen in our media, and then more specifically, like the real conversations I've had with, a few of my friends of color,
Okay.
and hearing from them, and so
But I know that they're all individuals. So why would it matter if
I'm not saying he's not allowed to have that opinion.
Sure.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying it's a very bold move because, I'm sure that to me, it's trying to make a statement. It's appealing to certain people.
And defund the police is not?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying him choosing as a black man. He understands optics.
Sure.
He's smart. As a black man in California to wear that shirt on, one of his main flyers, the optics on that is to elicit a feeling, either both from the left or from the right. That's all I'm saying. Symbols and, the way that we view things, he for sure knew. You got something for me, Scotty Young? No, go ahead. Sure. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Okay, Tucker's been commenting on a couple things.
Oh, thank you, Tucker. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, he said, wait, it's that guy on Fox 5. # celebrity.
Thanks, Tuck. Appreciate you.
And then I think I recently discovered my political identity. I think I'm a libertarian, in quotes.
I know. Well, it's been a slow burn for me. I've been, it's been evolving because there are problems with the libertarian platform. I'm not an idiot. Like, it's not a perfect answer, but I certainly like it more than anything else we see. And I got to be honest, man, I know like unchecked corporate reign is obviously a problem, but for me, if you just look at like industries that have not been regulated heavily and the ones that have are all inefficient, wildly inflated in price, not a good service. You know what hasn't been regulated? Just like all of the goods that we buy, like regular consumer products.
Well, here, before we jump on that train, go ahead.
He's got one more. Okay. The narrative is conflict. We live in a racist, sexist, imperialistic, etc. country. Hold on, he commented again. There are elements of all of those things that are true, but you're taking elements or exceptions and making them the focus. The more divided and conflicted you keep the public, the more likely you can get away with things that are universally unpopular to the public. And then he said, sorry, focus on the L in there. Libertarian. Libertarian.
No, I think he's absolutely right. And I have my opinions about your buddy Dave Smith, Alex. But I was listening. I don't know what you were listening to.
You hear that, Dave?
I'm just still shocked he's such a young guy. Listening to his voice, I could have sworn that he was like, a 47-year-old who like built trains in his basement.
For the listeners, if you don't know Dave Smith, he's one of the most prominent voices in the libertarian movement, and he's a very successful comic. He's been on Joe Rogan a few times. He has his own podcast all about the libertarian platform and what's going on in the world from a libertarian perspective. I do not know him personally, but I would love to meet him one day. What is your issue with Dave Smith?
I just think he's a little pompous.
Okay.
That's all.
Is that the worst thing in the world? He's very well read. He's super educated
on this. I know,
this.
but he's so proud of it. He's just so, like, when you hear him talk, it's like, it's just, I don't know. It's just a little pompous for me.
Yeah, but when people those kind of comments about folks to me are just like, what? Like on the other end too, people are like, ugh, Obama's such an elitist. It's like, yeah, he went to Harvard and he was the fucking president. I think he'd feel pretty elite. Sorry, you think he might think he's a little bit more important than you regular folks. Like, yeah, dude, who cares?
But also, have we had a president that isn't elitist?
I don't think George Bush was. I think he was just kind of like, all right, hey man, I'm here.
No. George Bush comes from like one of the most prominent families in Texas. He's gotten away with like,
I'm not saying that. I mean,
I love old man George Bush. I mean, he just wants to paint and be a rancher, you know? who like, I guarantee if I got to hang out with George Bush, I would leave being like, hey, pretty good dude. But also to say that he's like not elite. I mean, he's a good old boy, but like,
I'm not taking away from his obvious privilege and success and all that stuff. I'm just saying I don't think he had that aura of like. That's why he won, because you know who came off like an elitist? Al Gore. And that's why Bush won. It's like, I just like him.
well, I also still think that there was voter fraud, but that's a conversation for a different day.
I mean, maybe. I mean, sure. There could be. I think there's voter fraud all the time. I think most elections have some kind of voter fraud.
I'm going to go back to Tucker's comment that of talking about conflict. So Dave Smith.
By the way, just on pause real quick. On that note, there is something ironic that you can't stand Tucker Carlson, but this Tucker Hobby, what a great fan of our show.
I love Tucker Hobby.
Yeah, not Tucker Carlson.
No. He
Remember Tucker Max? Remember that guy?
Oh, was that the like?
I hope they serve beer in hell. He
Oh
was
my
kind of like
God.
he was like his time came a little bit before what the internet became with social media. But Scott, do you remember Tucker Max? So Tucker Max, if you guys don't know,
they sold his books in Urban Outfitters.
Yeah, he was really there's no way he would have been canceled today, but
100%.
He kind of came to like peak fame around like I want to say like 05, 06, I think.
Yeah, I think I was in college.
And his whole thing was like, oh, I'm like a bro who just does crazy shit. But it was always stories, and you never knew if they were true, but he was a good writer, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting how much our culture has shifted. That was kind of like right when Entourage was big. That was the last era, I think, where you could be that kind of white dude. I don't think you could
Well, it was before we had the term fuckboy.
Yeah. And then we saw
It was the fuckboy's last hurrah.
It was. You know, it's so funny. Dave Ellen, who created Entourage, I guess HBO, they were going to like do a reboot of some kind, and then HBO pulled out because they felt like it was like kind of culturally insensitive to what the time has become compared to like this. You remember the show, and it was a lot of like.
Yeah, every dude I ever dated ever, that's what we would watch when I would go to their house.
Yeah, and it's so funny. It was a fun show. But then now Doug Ellen, I think it's his name, Doug Ellen, is like really upset, and he was being like, it's bullshit. Like, I would adapt the new Entourage reboot for the times. I wouldn't have it live in what the show was in like, 04 to 07 or whatever it was on. This is interesting that like HBO was like, I don't know, it might not work today.
I mean, I'm also okay with them just going, we're not doing reboots anymore.
Yeah, there's a Matrix 4 coming out.
No.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
I agree. What were you saying about Dave Smith stuff, though?
So he had said something along those same lines of saying, to what Tucker was saying, which I actually like the way that Tucker was articulating it better than Dave, because Dave was more like, we keep talking about how racist and sexist and all these things, like we keep dividing each other. So he's talking about after the fall of Wall Street, because once it was like, oh, we are the 99%, then it was like, wait a minute, everybody's kind of
the fall of Occupy Wall Street.
What did I just say?
The fall of Wall Street. Very different things.
Yeah, sorry.
Wall Street's alive and well.
I'm sorry. Jonah's kicking me so much. I'm trying to stay focused, but I'm like actually in a lot of pain right now.
Yeah. Our son is very active.
And he's like so low. So like sitting like this, it's a lot. Imagine being just like punched in the dick like multiple times a day by your son who's inside of you.
I've been kicked square in the nuts with a cup on when I was doing Krav Maga. Even that was really painful because it just like it vibrated the area around, and even that was painful.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what it feels like being 7.5 months pregnant. So, the fall of Occupy Wall Street.
They were the 99%.
And so, the powers that be were basically being like, oh, wait a minute, everybody's starting to notice it's us against them.
Yep.
And so suddenly this huge narrative changed of like all of this, division and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't appreciate or agree with what Dave Smith was saying was, I also don't think that means that we should not acknowledge these very real things. But
like what? What kind of real things?
I mean, we clearly have an issue with our police system.
Sure. We
clearly still have a lot of things in place that are creating continued, like, institutionalized racism. We still have, like, there's just still a lot of social issues that could be in a much better position.
Sure.
But I also don't actually believe they're going to get any better unless we all hold our governments accountable.
Correct.
So continuing to go after each other, we're not going to get anywhere because we're also not the ones making the rules.
Yeah.
But I also think, a lot of it is continuing to, that was like when that guy came at me in my comments, just because like he was fucking triggered. Where
What was his issue?
because I had made that post of like stop calling emotionally aware women crazy.
Right.
Because I just watched a 2-minute documentary or a 2-minute trailer on Netflix of a grown ass man yelling and throwing chairs because the high school basketball team he coaches lost.
Right.
And then in the
Seems like an excessive response.
100%.
Yeah.
And then it even said, like, y'all need to get right with the Lord. Like,
Right.
Clearly I'm making a joke. If you read the caption, I'm like, this is a huge issue. Also acknowledging not even everybody, identifies as a man or a woman. I'm going to be breaking down kind of like all of these things of our emotional IQ and, the way that we socialize boys and girls differently and how that's working against all of us. And he was like, basically telling me that I don't understand what equality is.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think, was the sentence that I was like, oh, you and I need to sit down. Anyway.
But I think the bigger issue is those terms don't even have agreed upon most of these things don't even have agreed upon definitions anymore.
Well, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm just saying where, he was like, well, you don't understand equality. And this statement vilifies men. And we should call crazy people crazy and like toxic people toxic. And I'm like, I wanted to go after him. And then I was like, my whole Instagram is about hopefully opening up conversations. So I'm like, I can't go after him.
But when you respond, you lose. There's no response.
I understand. But I responded just by being like, actually, this is like a statement to illuminate that. I was trying to agree with him by being like, right, but the reason that all these narratives exist is because we're not acknowledging that we socialize boys and girls differently.
Yeah.
So we're teaching people two different sets of how to behave.
Right.
And then everybody's shocked that heteronormative relationships and dating is confusing. It's like, yeah, because you both got two different playbooks.
It's not heteronormative. It's dating and relationships are confusing across the board.
I know, but I'm saying if you're in a lesbian relationship or a gay relationship, as a boy or a girl, if you're identifying as those things, you were given the same playbook. So it tends to be easier to
I get what you're saying.
to work through things because you both are operating from the same playbook.
Yeah, I guess I'll just agree due to lack of experience, but I feel like
I'm talking about in relation to communication. I'm not saying that if you're dating outside of a heteronormative relationship that it's easy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that
sure I get
yeah.
it.
So anyway, whatever. And then he like came for me again. He was like, "Oh, I thought I was communicating or I thought I was engaging with a comedian. My bad." And that was the only part that pissed me off because I wanted to be like, "I watched your clips and I'm way fucking funnier than you. Step off." And then I was like, I just didn't respond.
Yeah, it seems like you're really over it.
I'm really over it. I've moved on.
But it's like when I made that video about the COVID passport stuff and people were attacking me. I don't respond to them. Why? You always lose.
That's not fair. You responded to a lot of people. You engaged with a lot of people.
I engaged with, like I said, if it was someone I didn't know, I don't. Only people I knew. And it was people on my Facebook who one particular person I knew from college who really came at me and he, quote, told me I was disgusting for saying my body, my choice should apply to vaccines.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I knew you in the past and you told me I'm disgusting for that, I feel like I'm going to at least try to understand where you're coming from.
But this is also where I'm just really interested to see how social media will evolve because I feel like social media has also worked to whether I don't think that the powers that be, let's not give them so much credit. They're not this bright. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That they were like, oh, we're also going to roll out social media so everybody can have their own individual thought. And then everyone will attack each other in the comments section because no one will agree.
It wasn't
like,
planned.
I know that. That's what I'm saying. It was a joke. And
I was agreeing with you.
Okay. And so, but I will be very interested to see how social media evolves through all of this, like, let's be clear. I mean, and I'm a realist, a spiritual realist, if you will. Ooh, great name for a book. You know what I mean? That I don't think there's any like overthrowing the government. I don't think like we've created a society that moves so quickly.
Yeah.
No one has time to really invest. And to your point where it's like, be good to your neighbors, like help out your community, like all of that is so much more important. And I also think that's,
Dude, our neighbor, what's his name? Dion?
Darren.
Yeah, our neighbor Darren came over, helped us fix like one of our light switches that broke, helped us fix like our, sunshade in the back. Just did it out of the kindness of his heart. What a great guy. That's what we need more of.
But that's what I'm saying.
I don't care who he voted for. He might not even vote.
But that's the thing that we're
lacking.
No, but there's also something to be said for we've now created identities around who we vote for.
Yeah, you know why? Because we gave slowly over the course of the past several decades, we've just given the government control over every element of our life. And that is the other issue, is that people think that that's supposed to be normal. And that's where I also get butt heads with people that if they try to engage with me about like, well, don't you think the issue is like with the libertarian platform is that the government can't protect this group and that group and this group and that group? And it's like, I would argue that the government does, even when you quote unquote, this happened a lot around 2020 when they were like, well, if we vote in libertarians, how are we going to protect marginalized people? And it's like, you're asking me that question as if the assumption is that Democrats protect marginalized people.
Yeah, they don't.
So I would say we're already not doing that. We might as well empower more individuals' autonomy over themselves and their communities. But then that's why I'm super opposed to the war on drugs. I know we have different views on gun regulation. Also, some of these issues, like gun regulation, I'm not an expert, so I don't really have a strong take. I don't go on and on and on about it. But I've listened to many podcasts and read in depth that if you really look at like the numbers breakdown, you know who gets hurt the worst? When every time you put in more and more restrictions on guns and gun control laws are poor minorities, because they typically live in very high crime neighborhoods and communities where a lot of them own guns for their own protection. They feel safer having a gun because these areas are riddled with crime, and they get hit with some ridiculous something happens, and like a guy will have like a pistol on him, maybe it's not registered, and he's sitting in a cage for 10 years for owning a firearm he probably has never used but felt obligated to have it because he lives in an incredibly dangerous part of the world.
Sure, and that's one part of the debate. My only thing about gun laws is you want to talk about thinking that your government doesn't care about you. It's like we have seen, I mean, everybody knows, you guys all live in the same world as me. It's like, as soon as it was affecting our kids in elementary schools and our government didn't do anything different.
Sure.
Like,
I'm not disagreeing.
They don't care about your well-being. That's the thing, that this whole like, Kamala Harris and her husband kissing while wearing masks outside. It's like, this is like, you guys are all performance artists, and frankly, your art is boring AF. Okay.
Well, you know what's also,
no, let me finish, because it's so, you cut me off all the time. Come on, get real. All right. But I'm just saying that it's like, it is so infuriating when, very, very left voices, are like, you don't care about people if you don't get the vaccine. You don't ever, and it's like all of this yelling. And I'm like, do you actually think that, I'm not saying that I think Kamala Harris is a bad person.
I'll say it. She's a bad person.
I'm not saying that.
I'll say it again. She's a bad person.
I don't think that she's a bad person, but I think
I do.
Okay, we hear you. Let me talk, please. But I'm saying that I think, if you cannot see that and see how performative and bullshit and transparent it is, that to me is a problem. It's like everybody is just, we're literally, all the world is a stage and the men and women are merely players. Like, that should be the slogan for this time in history.
That would be a pretty good slogan. Well, it's funny, too, because they're also not even following the rules that they're pretending to follow all the time. Like, somebody pointed this out. It's like, so like SNL, when they had their closing thing, they were all on stage. Yeah. Everybody had a mask on. but the cast was all on stage together without masks doing their skits. So like, or their sketches.
Oh God, yeah, I was gonna go. Please don't. Please call them
They're sketches. They're sketches. Nobody would care about that, but sketch comics. But anyway.
I know. Well, you know what I mean.
But I'm just saying, it's like, yeah, what a dumb. Like, they were all on stage for like an hour and a half, unmasked, performing together.
And I'm gonna guess that they all had to be vaccinated per their job.
Yeah,
anyway.
of course. But then at the very end, when they're all on there together,
Yeah.
it's like, what are we doing?
I know, but that's
It was stupid. Like, it just makes you look. It makes most of us who are paying attention take you way less seriously.
well. I'm just kind of like, at this point, what are we doing? You know what I mean? You guys, like, what are we doing here?
I've said,
Obviously, I want everyone to be safe. Obviously, I want everybody to take care of themselves. But I feel like this entire time, we have not, the narrative has not been, here is how you keep yourself safe. The narrative has been, if you don't do this, you're the one that everybody's coming for. If you don't do this, you just want to kill people. Like, there hasn't been any, like,
there's been a little bit, and then people get yelled at. It's like, well, to keep yourself safe, we need to have serious conversations about diet, exercise, and vitamins. And then the answer is like, that's shaming. Not everybody can do that. It's like, okay, even if that is true, which I disagree with, it doesn't take away from the reality that that's the best.
Vitamins are expensive, to be fair. There are large groups of people who probably can't access
I was more referring to I don't agree that it's shaming.
Oh, got it.
But I get what you're saying. Everybody can exercise in some capacity unless you're actually disabled.
But it's also and even disabled people. They're people who I mean.
But what I was saying though is, even if that were true or is true, it doesn't change the reality that those are the best things to do to protect yourself from this pandemic we've had the past year. And for some reason, we're not. Like, think about it. We should be hyper focusing on that. Like, if you really care about the health and well-being of society, we should be talking nonstop about fixing our diets, vitamin D.
We also should all be. Or I'm sorry, you go ahead. I cut you off, and I got mad at you earlier for cutting me off. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay, well, see, I acknowledged it. Do you know what I mean? That's what being a good communicative partner means. Thank you. Thank you so much.
If I still had the sound effects, I would have done an applause break right there.
Well, if we would have had our clappers.
Yeah, they're over there.
You could have clapped for me. I think I've lost my train of thought now.
We didn't even talk about Mother's Day. This is your first Mother's Day as a pre-mom.
I had something so good I wanted to say.
What was
about
it?
The health and well-being. Oh,
okay.
Now the time has passed, but I've remembered, so we got to push through.
Sure.
Right, Scotty Young? If people are not aware that our healthcare system is blatantly, and this is going to be graphic, fucking us in the ass, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing where it was like, I can no longer hear America's the greatest nation in the world next to like living through what we've experienced. It might be we are at such an advantage because of our freedoms that we, live in a capitalistic society where people, that are born into privilege have the ability to, create something for themselves. In theory, we welcome immigrants here to start the American dream. I'm not discrediting all of those things, but also to tout like we're impenetrable is.
I don't feel like I hear that narrative anymore.
But I'm saying it's not as much, but I'm just saying to have that narrative still be in the zeitgeist. And then also, as we've seen, it's like all of our systems are failing us. The majority of Americans, we are failing. We are being failed blatantly.
I agree.
And, it was
and I would say then the last thing we should be doing is giving more power to the federal government.
Dude, I 100% agree. I'm not against you on that at all. And I'm just saying that, that's where a lot of my anger has actually come from during this entire pandemic, which is, where people were kind of like going after each other. And frankly, I'm like, hey, y'all all want to smile for a photo that you had masks on, or like the fact that people would take a picture without their mask on and then in the caption have to be like, and I had my mask on the whole time. Like, we've created this fear of being attacked where it's like, that should not be the fear. I'm not coming after you for your individual choices.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to know what I want to come for? The fact that like we don't have a proper healthcare system, that people who get sick don't even have access to get better.
Yep.
Because if it comes to, I'm either going to have to pay this medical bill or I'm going to lose my house. And that is a very, very real reality.
I agree.
So, this whole our government wants to keep us safe. It's like, that is a lie. It's a lie.
Yeah.
I think there are people in positions of power, certainly, that want to do good. I do believe that. I don't think that they're all, they don't all have
like
this,
3 or 4.
I don't think they all get branded in the bottom of the White House or something that's like, now do what we do.
Yeah.
Although I do love a good secret society. But yeah, I think it's just, I feel like we're all seeing who Oz really is. And I think to continue to yell at each other is the most human and also just destructive thing that we could do.
Yeah. I guess, with the healthcare thing, virtually everybody agrees that the system is fucked. I think the debate becomes, is the answer to deregulate it completely or significantly less, or regulate it more? That's where the fighting comes. Because I would argue regulating it more will this is the major thing I butt heads with my super progressive friends on. Not even butt heads, if you just agree to disagree or whatever. I would just say regulating it more is just going to make it worse.
Well, the problem is that the people who get to decide what's regulated and what's not, they've already fucked us.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I believe that they're going to do anything that's in our interest? I mean, to me, that's the problem. Where it's like, what do we do?
But that's sort of so that attitude I've now just I've applied it more broadly on things than I think you have. So when I was saying before, it's I've lost anything that isn't communicated to me directly from someone I know. I just have lost the ability to give a shit. When people are anything that they've decided is important to them, educate yourself. It's oh, so you've just decided that the thing that you spent a lot of time caring about, society, now we all should equally be as well read up on it and be at the same level of education on that issue as you. That's absurd. How is that not the most narcissistic, hyper self-absorbed thing we've ever seen? That all of the issues that you've decided are the most important, everybody else has to not only agree with you on, but equally is informed on the topic as you have.
Well, what's interesting to me is what makes a really good team, right? If we've seen it in every, think of any, just Marky Mark, heist movie,
Sure.
right? It's not a group of 5 Marky Marks. Nothing would get accomplished except we would just see a bunch of dudes with their shirts off, right?
Yeah.
So it's you got to have.
That's Magic Mike.
That's true. You got to have the guy that's good at boosting cars, right? You got to have that guy. Then you got to have the IT person who's
Sure,
going to shut down all the lights, so all the lights are going to turn red.
I get
and
it,
then
yeah.
you need the sexy vixen who she can
charm her way into the vault.
Yep,
Yeah,
and she
right.
can
Yeah.
seal the car.
I think you're just describing Ocean's 11.
Well, that's what I'm saying. All the
Yeah,
heist, but I'm
right.
just saying where it's the point is that to make a really good team,
Yeah.
you bring people with different strengths.
Sure.
And that's to me the thing that I don't feel like we are acknowledging is still incredibly powerful. To your point, all of these people are educated on different things. All of these people are coming to these really big conversations with different pieces of information.
Yeah.
And rather than going, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting that you think this. That's something I can learn.
Mm-hmm.
We have decided that it's for us to impale everyone
Right.
with our opinion rather than just going, you and I in a comments thread, we're not going to solve anything.
Right.
And so I really am wanting to work towards getting to that place.
But isn't that a natural outgrowth of social media? All we're doing all the time is sharing stuff. So it's almost, I catch myself with this too. And I know it's a bit silly to say this as someone who is on a podcast, multiple podcasts. I don't really do my opinions on Highly Unlikely. That's just being fun. But this one is a lot of opinions. We don't need to know everything everybody thinks about stuff. And it's you know what the best example of it is? When people try to shame other people for not putting their pronouns in their bio. And it's I'm not telling you not to put your pronouns in. I just don't want to. Well, then you're not being an ally. It's okay. That's really what I'm saying. Okay, all right, fine. If that's how you feel, I have nothing. What am I going to say to that? I don't want to. I'm not attacking. I'm not telling you not to. I'm not just taking away anything from you. I just don't feel like participating.
Well, I also think it's because we've also kind of reached this precipice of seeing all of these different issues and seeing all the ways that people live differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like we couldn't see that before because
Right.
you didn't have everybody. You didn't know how everybody in your neighborhood thinks and feels and votes and all of that.
Yeah.
So there is an element of now where it's like now we can all see each other. And it's like if you don't see like I see, and again, that's the thing where I'm always like, please remember that not everybody lives what?
I was gonna say, what's that musical where it's like, "Do you see what I see"?
Oh, I think that's just a Christmas song.
Is it?
I think so.
Scott, Google song "Do You See What I See" and let's find out what it
Do
is.
you know? Do you hear what I hear?
What song is that?
Yeah, that's a Christmas song.
Mm. Yeah. Wait till they cancel Christmas.
No,
It's coming.
no.
You know, just a bunch of I don't know. You know,
Well, so why we do this?
for sure, there's gonna be some fucking like Vice article why Santa Claus is an outcry of toxic masculinity or something ridiculous.
Oh, well, this is a different song.
Type in Christmas song. Do you see what I see?
I think it's "Do you hear what I hear?"
We'll click on that. Let's see.
Oh,
Carrie Underwood, do you hear what I hear? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
she did a cover. Okay, so it was Do You Hear What I Hear?
said the night of little lamb.
Very anticlimactic for all that.
Do you hear what I hear? I think it must have been. Yeah, this was the
Bing Crosby. Yeah, wait till they cancel him.
Yeah.
I'm just at this point. I'm just assuming everybody's getting canceled at some point.
Look at Tucker. Look at him. Look at that face. Oh, poor guy. Look how disgruntled he looks.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, he is the most popular host on cable TV for as far as like those evening news shows.
Oh.
He like his numbers are like.
I would really be interested to sit down with him though. Tuck, what's up, my friend?
I mean, he's pretty easy to make fun of, but listen, I've said this before. I'll give him this. He is the only mainstream late night news anchor that is critical of our military and what they're doing right now in terms of these like ridiculous wars we're still in with the Middle East. And he's like, what's going on, man?
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate him as much as I don't hate anybody, but I will say somebody I genuinely detest is Bill O'Reilly.
That guy's different. That guy is a creep, and he was exposed for being a creep. And I think I don't know what he does now. He's not on TV anymore.
I don't know, dude.
He's on like the
Sucks.
fringes of the internet.
But Fringes of the Internet, also a great name for a podcast.
Bill O'Reilly seems like a prick. Yeah.
Well, he's an instigator. And you know what I can't stand is instigators being like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching
But
you.
he also has that like old school 1970s sleaze bag, you know?
Like, ugh. Yeah, he sucks. Here we go. Former Fox News host Bill O'Reilly gets new show on radio show owned by Trump ally. Shocker.
Radio station, but yeah. But even that sentence, what does that mean, Trump ally? I'm not a defender of Trump or Bill.
O'Reilly, 71, has been accused by multiple former Fox News employees of sexual harassment. He denied any wrongdoing. Shocker.
Yeah, listen, I'm all in favor of due process and whatnot, but that guy just stunk of.
Dude, his face screams, I touch you inappropriately. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, the most damning thing is I remember it came out. Scott, Google how much did Bill O'Reilly pay out in settlement? Because it yeah, let's see. How much did Bill O'Reilly? I just want to wait till this comes up before I want to start another topic. It's okay.
Do you hear what I hear?
Yeah, we click that one. How much has Bill O'Reilly?
$32 million.
Okay, now let's think about this for a second, right? That means he'd rather spend $32 million than whatever he was being accused of just being discussed in court.
Ugh, look at him. Gross.
You know, that to me is a pretty damning fact. Like, I don't think that everything, every accusation is always automatically true. I think most of them probably are with someone like that. I would agree. Most of the time, it's mostly true. But you got to think whatever he was accused of is so gross and so bad.
Well, the other thing that is like, Yeah, but the other thing is like his whole thing is going after people and being relentless
Mm-hmm.
of getting to the truth. Yet
You kn-
all he wants to do is cover up his own filth.
You know who was hypercritical of Bill O'Reilly?
Tucker Carlson.
Yep. He called him out way early on. He called it. He said he's gonna fall apart because his whole shtick is gonna get exposed. I'll find the clip and I'll send it to you. And I'm not like some Tucker fan. I mean, I watch clips of his on his Instagram account. I think they're interesting, but and if somebody thinks that makes me like a white supremacist or something ridiculous, I'm not gonna argue with you. I've lost the ability to care.
Well,
What?
I mean, you say that, but you still get pretty heated in discussions in our home sometimes.
But I get more heated, not even heated, just kind of like it never ceases to amaze me. The thing, like, I'll give you an example that also we're just inventing things to be upset about. Like, that fake white power symbol I was telling you about, like the OK symbol.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is like, you can look this up. It's a fact that a bunch of like internet trolls made a Reddit or like a 4chan thread being like, people who are outraged, everything will just believe anything you tell them is outrage. So this for everybody knows this either means okay or like 3-point shot, like all the NBA guys do this and they make a 3-pointer.
But then if you do it like this and you look at it, then I get to punch you.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Then it was like the punch game. So, but then they figured out you could say it's like the WP, like that is not a white power symbol.
Yeah.
But
That's
now,
something like a 13-year-old made up.
but Elon Musk on SNL during his sketch when he was doing Weekend Update. At one point, he did like this because it's a hand gesture everybody does. And they're like, see? And then there were like Twitter accounts with like legitimate followings, not random, being like, I cannot believe SNL would let a white supremacist on there, making the white supremacist. And it's like, you're taking the bait, guys.
But also, when we do that, we're diluting the very real argument around white supremacy. We're diluting we
don't even agree on what that means. Even
Right.
you and I don't agree what white supremacy is.
Right. But I'm saying that the more that we do those things, but a lot of that, I love that I'm still doing this.
Right.
While I'm also
Now you're a white supremacist.
The other problem, which I think is because we now expect an immediate response from people for any trauma that happens collectively in the news.
I know.
Anything that happens, we expect people to respond right away, specifically on the left. And there are some black leaders that I found that I follow, particularly females, and that's really where I learned this idea. And they were like, this is a major, major problem that we're asking people not only to participate in this collective trauma over and over and over again, because that's what it is. We're traumatizing ourselves by experiencing this. And then we're all like diluting it because we're getting so used to just being bombarded with hate that we don't even realize how palatable it is and how it's around all of us all the time. And that the more that we expect people to have an immediate response, no one is processing what's happening. So that's the perfect example of like this hand gesture. Somebody makes it and then suddenly nobody wants to be the last person to participate because then they don't want to get called out for why didn't you say anything? So nobody's even stopping to go, well, that seems insane.
Yeah.
Because now we're just attacking constantly.
It also,
Ugh.
yeah, see, but
What a dork.
Elon.
I mean, just a big dork, dude.
Yeah, I know a lot of people hate Elon. I don't know. I don't mind him. I mean, listen, at a certain point,
He just looks lonely to me.
he might be.
Is that too real?
I don't know. Well, people were also attacking him because he said he was the first SNL host with Asperger's, and apparently someone else in the past had Asperger's, and so they were like, "Oh, Elon Musk." Even
And so did he announce that he has Asperger's on the show? Is
it
that
was part of his monologue.
okay?
So he like mentioned it in his monologue. I didn't watch any of it.
And did we know this prior?
I don't think so. I don't think if he had it, it was not public knowledge the way it is now. I mean, there's so much information. The other problem with today too is you can't like anybody for one element of who they are. You have to take everybody with the 360. Because Elon Musk's a great example. And I'm not a defender of Elon. I know there's a lot of problems with this guy. Our friend of the show who chimes in a lot, Ricky Rance, is very, very concerned about Elon Musk with many things that he's done. I'm simply saying that now, like, when you like any public figure, You don't even like if you say that you like this Major Williams guy that I'm going to research more that it could be a good option for our governor. You know, I don't know what.
I mean, he's not going to be worse than Gavin Newsom.
I think he seems pretty cool. I like him. Seems like a regular guy. He's a veteran. Not that being a veteran makes you inherently qualified, but I believe he's a veteran. I have to double check that. But anyway, my only point is it's just annoying that now, like Scott pulled up his site. Scott's doing a great job. I'm not even telling him what to pull up. He just knows, you know?
It's time to think major for governor.
I mean, look how charming this guy looks. You don't think?
Well, there he looks like a male model.
He's a handsome fella.
So he's pro, let's read these. Pro, God, family, freedom, life, LEOs, firefighters.
That means law enforcement officers.
Okay.
Not Leos like the sign.
Oh, I was thinking like just Leo, like Leo DiCaprio. Yeah. First responders, armed forces, forest management.
I'm in with that.
Legal immigration, school choice.
Absolutely a fan of that.
School choice?
Yeah. Do you know what that means?
No.
It's giving more autonomy for parents to choose which school their kids go to, and they're not forced to go to the school that like they happen to live in with their kids' district.
Oh yeah,
It's like charter schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Type of stuff.
But
You know who's super fights that tooth and nail? It's the teachers union.
Why?
Because they want to control where your kids go and what they learn. They don't want you to have autonomy over what you can do.
Well,
with
the other problem though is that most people will only want to go to one school, and then if people try to bus in, it's gonna be a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Anyway,
but
he's
it's
also
just like
pro
community collaboration, Second Amendment, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Anti-mandatory vaccines, human trafficking. Good to know.
Yeah.
One would hope. One would hope, Major Williams.
I think that's on there because that's a big issue with our immigration in California. Is it's a pipeline for human trafficking.
Yeah. Voter fraud, high taxes,
Amen.
over regulations, hate groups, socialism, communism, online censorship, defending police.
He's anti-defunding police.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
They could be a little more in depth, but
That's the only thing where it's like, I feel like we could kind of take either of these pros or cons lists and kind of.
well, when you
know.
scroll down, there's more detailed stuff about each.
I will
thing.
say, I like the site's layout. Can I say that?
Sure.
Whoever is on their team, they did a good job. Academic achievements.
Let's see.
As a highly accomplished student and an outstanding athlete, Major reached one academic achievement after another. In 1996, how old is this guy? He doesn't look that old.
Oh, black don't crack, baby.
In 1996, he attended Trinity Valley Community College, where he studied communications and media. He later transferred to Louisiana Tech University, heard of it, where he stood out as an innovator and was celebrated for his excellent debating skills, with a tremendous debate record of 21-2. Wow, over the course of 2 years. A few years later, Major attended Eastfield College, where he concluded his college basketball career to pursue a life of public service. There we go.
Well, it was a long pause there. So I guess he wasn't a veteran. I think because his name is Major, I assumed he was like a major in the military.
Well, I think that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Oh, look how cute his family is.
Right? He's a family man. Anyway, listen.
Well, we don't know that. They just took a really good picture.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to research this
Major
guy.
kicks for kids. That's his.
I certainly would rather vote for this person than fucking Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh my God! I mean, what are we doing?
But a Republican doesn't have a shot in hell of winning our governorship. I mean, it's possible.
We need someone in office that thinks differently in order to solve complex issues. As we run this campaign, it is our goal to educate the public on the depth of policy that has been passed so that they may see for themselves all of the details and caveats which have slowly eroded our autonomy and freedom as individuals. This reads like a textbook manual. We will make policy with the best interests of the public in mind and not pander to big pharma and other industries that now have their hands in the pockets of our politicians. That's
Yeah.
a pretty hefty promise, Major.
Well, he's trying his best, you know.
I mean, listen, he's not going to do worse than Gavin Newsom, and he's at least good to look at.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, I'll keep looking up and researching. You know what, Major? I'm going to see if I can. Do you want to record a support message for?
I don't think I'm ready to do that today.
Yeah. Anyway.
Interesting. So his first name is Major.
Seems like it, yep.
Okay.
He's the only one of the candidates I've seen that I'm like, I actually kind of like this guy.
I haven't looked into any of the other ones, but I am still shocked and enraged that nobody from the Democratic Party is running against Gavin Newsom.
But-
I don't know how you can call yourself I don't know. I understand because like when your dad was like, Rachel, you have to understand. I was like, yeah, logically I understand it. But that is exactly why I do not have faith in the Democratic Party for the fact that you would watch somebody literally fail at their job. I mean, be so bad at their job and everybody else is going, yeah, we'll let that dude represent us.
You know who I bet could become governor of California? Mario Lopez.
Oh, 100%.
I feel like, why would he want the job? Like, if you're a successful entertainer, why would you want to become a governor? Schwarzenegger did it, but he's kind of his own thing. But I feel like someone like Mario Lopez, as far as I know, scandal-free, not Caucasian, represents another minority group that would be great to have a little more representation in the political sphere. I don't know what he believes in. I don't know if he's qualified, but he just seems like a liked guy. Who wouldn't want Governor AC Slater?
I mean, for real. Oh, and that'd be really great. His icon is just the chair turned backwards.
That's so funny. Yeah, he's like, hey, I'm Mario Lopez. You probably remember me from Saved by the Bell. Maybe you've seen me on Extra, or maybe you're one of those weird people that watched me in the Lifetime movie. What was it? A Colonel Sanders Recipe for Desire or something?
Oh yeah, a Recipe for Seduction.
Yeah,
something like that. Of course.
God, he'd make a campaign speech in that outfit,
in a backwards chair. Who wouldn't vote for that? I mean,
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I think we've finally been going. Did we go an hour? How long have we been going?
We're at an hour and 11 minutes.
we got to wrap it up.
We gotta go.
Any other comments from? No, that's it. All right. Well, thank you, Tucker, for listening. And
yeah, so we are back. We are back here live. For now, I mean, as you can tell, if you've seen me, I'm like constantly moving in my chair because I'm like, oh, my son is just attacking my uterus and it's painful. But we are back here for now. We're going to get some more clips up. We have been, what a lesson learned, man. When you are a 2-person production company,
wow,
you can't do 4 podcasts at once.
What's the 4th?
Turns out, well, last week's news with Tracy.
Oh yeah.
All in the, let me be clear.
That's on hiatus.
Highly unlikely.
That's full steam ahead.
And
Common Ground.
And Common Ground.
Yeah. Well, Hey, listen, man. I mean, the good thing is Common Ground's kicking ass right now. Or highly unlikely is. This one is too.
I feel like we're kicking ass.
Just because I'm here.
Yeah, we're back in studio with Scotty Young. You guys, I apologize if my energy was a little low this one. I've been just powering through nonstop editing this highly unlikely show. Please keep watching and listening to that. Please keep watching and listening to this. We love you. Spread kindness. That's the key thing. The world is crazy and it's getting crazier, but we can always be kind to each other.
Yeah, I was thinking about when I couldn't sleep last night. I don't know why. Because my tagline with Tracy was always like, y'all be good, be kind. But I was kind of starting to do that when I would get off stage. And I said something like, because I always say thank you for listening. That's what I always say. And so I was like, I wanted to say something like, thank you for listening to me and be kind to each other.
On that note, guys, I've been Alex Gettlin.
I've been Rachel LaForce.
We'll be here next week.
Have a great week.